What's poppin'? We got the house history class, man. Happy Corona break to y'all.
You know what it is. Go ahead, like and subscribe to the channel. This is where you finna learn about the history. You feel me? Tune in.
Straight like that.
Jumping back into this next video, I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about the Great Depression. So remember, we're coming off the Roaring 20s where things are honestly the best they've ever been. The economy is booming. You're coming off this wartime economy. Things are looking great. People are making money. People have extra money. They're buying goods. Everything is looking good. Well, fast forward to this Great Depression, and this is going to be due to a couple of things. So the first thing you got to understand is this wartime economy that happens after World War I, this is not going to stay forever. It's kind of like if you look at the economy after World War II, or anytime the United States leaves a major war, wartime economy is good. You'll hear presidents say, oh, we're in a wartime economy, and that means factories are really rolling. And when factories are rolling, you have a lot of people with jobs. You have a lot of people with jobs. Your unemployment is down. Unemployment is down. More money in people's pockets. They can spend it. You all get the idea. What's going to happen, though, is really the first thing that I kind of want to talk about is agriculture. So during the war, a lot of people had to, be farmers. And there was a need for farmers because they had to supply, they being the farmers, had to supply soldiers and troops across the world, really, with food when it comes to World War I. So there's going to be this huge need. A lot of people get into get into agriculture, and when you get into agriculture, you're trying to make a lot of agriculture, a lot of product. What you're going to do is you're going to invest in machinery. And when you invest in that machinery, it's expensive, okay? Just like anything else that's nice, it's expensive, right? You kind of get what you pay for. And farmers are not going to have that kind of money. So what's going to happen is they're going to take out a loan. Well, when the economy starts going bad, I don't know how much you all know about loans. I usually love talking to you all about loans because a lot of you are getting ready to enter into the student loan realm, which I am currently in, and talk about interest rates and all this other stuff. But how a loan works is if you don't pay back that loan, they take your stuff. Meaning, if I have a car loan and I don't pay off my car loan in a certain amount of time to what I agreed at the time of purchase, guess what happens? They come and take that nice little truck that I'm currently paying off, and it goes back to the Ford dealership. Why? Because that is their property until you pay it off. Once you pay it off, it's yours. And I wouldn't even say the dealership. I guess it depends on who you make the deal with, right? That's, I guess, a detail that's not really necessary. But anyways, what I'm saying is farmers don't really have the need to make this much food when the war is over because those soldiers are back home. We don't have to supply this massive amount. And so they have all this big machinery and they still have to pay off the loan. Well, guess what? Less people are buying food. And this is kind of like the first sign that something's kind of off because as these people are buying less food, they're not making as much money, right? As simple as this. There's not a need for the product that you're growing to sell. You make less money. You make less money. You can't pay loans. And then once again, you can't pay loans. The bank, they always want that money back. They're going to come and get your stuff. So the agriculture industry is going to be the first thing that really takes a hit. And your unemployment is going to start to grow. And I want to talk to you all about something. It's called it's unequal distribution of wealth, meaning there's a lot of people getting rich and then there's a lot of poor people, and it's kind of like that today. People talk about this wealth gap. Why is there a wealth gap historically? Why does it matter? Who's responsible for this? Is anybody responsible for this? These are like modern day questions that we're kind of analyzing. And so this wealth gap is starting to grow, and I want to highlight two terms. The first one is going to be overproduction, right? And I've already kind of talked about that. I mean, you are producing too much for the people that are buying stuff. The second one is going to be underconsumption, meaning there's a surplus of stuff that is happening, and there's a surplus of goods being made, but there's not a whole lot of people buying them. The example I use right now is like Toys R Us. You all may not remember Toys R Us. Toys R Us was big when I was a kid, and exactly that, like it's a bunch of toys. Well, guess what? Kids quit buying those type of toys, so there was not a need for a specific toy company, and then they produced too much. Not a lot of people are dying, therefore they go out of business. Well, those two things are going to play into Americans' society and into the overall just business aspect that comes with America. So workers are going to start to lose their jobs. Because like I said, a company is not going to keep these people around because that they are losing they're losing money and they can't afford to pay them. So a company's always going to have their best interest in mind first, meaning if they're not making a whole lot of money, they're going to do something to change that. And so when they start doing that, they're going to start laying people off. Well, again, this kind of hits on a new cycle that I've already talked about with agriculture. If you don't have a job, you don't have money. And I know you all are, 17, some of you are 18 years old, so you really don't understand this, or maybe some of you do, where if there's not a constant income coming in, or a lot of people live their life check to check, meaning when they get a check, they have to pay bills, and then by the end, when that check is like gone, that's when the next check's coming in. Okay, that's going check to check basis. And so when people don't have that money coming in, their loans that they have taken out to buy these nice products that are coming out during these 20s and this like spur of technology, they're going to have to pay for that. And that's going to be a big part of the Great Depression, so the uneven distribution of wealth. And I think the biggest thing that I'm going to talk about right here is going to be the stock market crash. Now, the stock market crash is interesting. So I'm going to first talk about the different parts of the stock market. So what is a stock? A lot of you don't know what stocks are. A lot of you hear of it, but it's kind of like you may walk in, your parents are watching the news, and you hear something about stocks, and you're like, ugh, that sounds lame, or you just don't know a whole lot about it. So I'm going to make this as simple as possible. Imagine a stock. So let's say Apple. All right. So let's imagine Apple. Okay. Let's imagine the whole company of Apple is represented in like a pizza. All right. So obviously you cut up a pizza. So let's say we cut our pizza into 4 different slices, right? So one down the middle, one across. So now you have 4 different sections. See if you can visualize this. How a stock works. Okay, so our whole company is Apple of that pizza. If I buy a stock is partial ownership in a company. If I buy a stock, I am taking a part of that pizza with me, and I now own this part, right? If I sell a stock, I'm taking my piece of pizza and I'm putting it back. I'm giving it back. How stocks work is they're based on money. So stocks have like a set price. So let's just say Apple's not this now. Let's say Apple currently is probably, I don't know, in the 200s, something like that. Let's say one share of Apple is $200. How it would work is you pay a broker or whatever company you're using $200, and then you get that product from Apple. So if you have like an account, you would take that $200, you would buy that product, and then boom, you have a share of Apple. So what's going to happen is there's this thing called credit. All right, now credit, while it sounds good, credit cards, I guess, is usually what I usually talk to you all about. While credit cards are very, very good and they're useful for you to have at this age because you can build some solid credit. Shout out Miss Blackman, she told me to get my first credit card in her econ class. But they're very positive, but they're very negative. So let me tell you why they're positive. Number one, it allows you to buy things with money you may not have right then. So what a credit is essentially, if I want to buy a pair of shoes, okay, let's say a pair of shoes is $100. I don't have $100. I can charge it, boom, swipe it, Amex, my American Express card. And then what I do is I pay that off. So whenever I do get that $100, I pay it off. So credit is like someone essentially buying that item for you. And that's exactly what it is. Amex bought that item for me. Well, guess what? At the end of the month, I'm going to have to pay that Amex fee, which is going to be $100. Or heaven forbid I charge something else like lunch or whatever. I'm going to have to pay whatever I charge. Well, if I don't pay it, when I sign to get that credit card, it says, hey, if you don't make that payment, you're going to get hit with interest. What interest means is, so when you don't have very good credit, your interest is going to be high, right? It could be as high as 20%. Especially when you're younger, because they don't believe that you can necessarily pay back. You don't have any history of being able to pay back money you borrow. So what happens is they hit you with interest on top of what you owe. So now your $100 now goes from $100 to $120. And you're like, what the heck? Well, if you don't pay that, well, guess what? It's going to go up again to $140. If you don't pay that, guess what? It's going to go up again and again and again. And then you start, all of a sudden you realize those $100 pair of shoes that you bought because you haven't paid, you now owe $200. And now you can see how This is just a $100 purchase. Most people use credit cards for larger purposes. So you can see how an individual can come severely in debt. So what's happening is people are buying stock based on credit. And when you do that, that means you really don't own the stock, right? Whatever credit company you're using, whatever credit line you're using, that is who owns that stock. So let's say I buy a share of Apple for $200, okay, and I buy it using credit. Well, when the stock market, which is going to crash when it happens, so when a stock crashes, what that means is the price of that stock goes down. So let's say I bought it for $200. Let's say the price drops all the way down to $10. Well, I just lost $190. So not only did I end up losing money because the stock market crashes and I bought on credit, but I also end up still owing that money, right? I still owe that original $200. So now I'm really in the hole big because I wasn't smart with my money and the stock market ended up messing me up. Now, just disclaimer, the stock market I don't believe is a terrible thing. The stock market, a lot of people use it for retirement. A lot of people try to day trade. A lot of people are doing it right now because, pro tip, if you don't know much about stocks, they're going to go like this. It's like the economy. They're going to go up and down. The key is you want to catch them on the down, so when they're on the up, you make money. And then you're hoping that next drop doesn't go as low as what it was when you bought it. So if you're interested in stocks, pro tip, buy when they're low. That sounds like obviously, but now's the time when they're low. Do what you want. So moving on from that, the stock market's going to crash. And when this happens, you're like, why is this a big deal? Because when people get word that the stock market is crashing, okay, Black Tuesday is what it's called, they're going to start selling their stock quickly. When that happens, when you sell your bunch of stock, the stock market is going to go all the way down. And you start losing money because your stock price starts going down. And so what happens is all these people's retirements, all this extra cash flow and all this other stuff, it starts going down. So people lose a whole lot of money. And then the last thing I want to talk about after the stock market crashes, I'm going to talk about the Dust Bowl. Now, the stock market crashing, overproduction, underconsumption, agriculture taking a hit, Dust Bowl does not help the agriculture. All this stuff leads to something known as the Great Depression, which is like the title of your notes here. And then the next notes, we're going to talk about these ideas to get us out of the Great Depression. Well, here's the thing here. The Great Depression, the president at this time is going to be President Hoover when all this is happening. At this time, the government does not want to step in to take action to help these Americans like today. It is not seen at this time that a government's responsibility is to deal with the issues of the American public. And so they're going to keep it to themselves. They give them that laissez-faire approach. And President Hoover is going to be to blame. Like I said, a lot of people lose their jobs, you lose their house, they end up losing their houses, all that stuff. So they're going to have to move into things called Hoovervilles. They're going to have to move out of their house. They're going to lose it. They're going to move into tenement housing, all that stuff. And he takes a lot of blame for it. And that really goes into the Great Depression. The other thing I'm going to talk about, and the last thing I'm going to talk about in this video, is the Dust Bowl. So with the Dust Bowl, what's happening is it's a result of farmers farming too much, and it's a result of there being a drought, and it's a result of these heavy windstorms. So because there's farming too much, the soil gets really loose. Because there's a drought, it turns really dry, and then because of the windstorms, it's going to be what's responsible for blowing it away. So that is essentially your Great Depression packet. Remember, everything is on my blog, so I'm not going to touch on everything in these videos. I just don't have enough time. So make sure if you have questions that you contact me. Look at the PowerPoint, follow the PowerPoint. The notes go along with the PowerPoint. This is just me kind of giving you some supplements. Make sure that you are following the PowerPoint. Make sure you're looking at all that stuff. Again, make sure you're completing your USA test preps and anything else that you have to do for this class as we try to finish up strong. If you need any extra help, you got any comments, you got any concerns, make sure you're doing your projects. All of that stuff, feel free to contact me via email or remind or whatever you feel I guess fit to do. So until next time, talk to y'all later.
Thanks for watching History with House.
Don't forget to
Like,
comment,
and subscribe.